Hello, this is Christina Barton. You're watching Black Tea News. Hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today we're going to be talking about Lady Gaga on International Women's Day. She featured Dylan Mulvaney and some people on, Instagram weren't having it because they're like, this is a man, so what's up with that? And so she's like, this isn't backlash, this is hatred. So I want to talk about that mostly because I don't understand what's the point of celebrating women if men can be women. Like, if there's no real distinction or real separation of categories, or if those separation of categories are so minuscule that your mere thoughts can pull you over onto the other side, um why are women special? Like, seriously. So we will ask that question when we get to that segment, but we'll be talking about that. But by the way, I'm not surprised at all at Lady Gaga. I'm not surprised at Lady Gaga for going that route or defending it, and not at all. This is not my shocked face. I'm shocked if you're shocked. um, but also there was a hearing with special counsel her about the Biden's classified documents and the report that came out. And there's some funny moments with Democrats who are like, exonerated Biden. He's like, no, I didn't exonerate Biden at all. And they're like, it's my time. So I'm gonna talk about that for a bit, and I also want to get to this video that I didn't have time to get to yesterday with Nancy Mace and George Stephanopoulos, because he tried to ask like, hey, how can you support Trump knowing the kind of person he is and the allegations and what the jury found with E. Jean Carroll, and she was like, you're trying to shame me. People have been trying to shame me my whole life. And she really tried to shoot him down. People were like, oh yes, queen. I don't know if it was the ultimate own, but I just thought it was rich coming from Stephanopoulos, since his background was the Clintons. So anyway, before we jump into everything, I want to encourage you guys, go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on the website, different articles, different videos, etc. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation on blacktnews.com/donate, because it does cost a streaming room, a website, all that stuff. So if you guys can support, and that way I do very much appreciate you guys. You guys can check out different merch that we have available at blacktnews.com, like different mugs and t-shirts. Like we got the You Are Not That Special mug and other stuff. I was thinking about the State of the Union because Marjorie Green Taylor came in her Trump MAGA hat, and there was another guy who wore like a Trump shirt. And I was just thinking, and I went to the Trump campaign website, and I'm just like, none of their drip is better than like the Trump mugshot shirt that I made. So I'm gonna pull it up real quick. I don't have like a graphic that's like ready to go. I guess I should make one, but let me share my screen with you guys on the site so I can show that. I haven't showed it in a minute, haven't really pushed it in a minute, but I'm just like, no, I've seen some good like Trump mugshot stuff, don't get me wrong, but you know like with the MAGA for life here, like I see nothing like cooler than that. And I have the hoodie, and I have the t-shirt. Oh, let me go back to merchandise page. So there's got that on the mug. I made that chain. 2024 MAGA for life. So yeah, my other stuff, pro choice men are sus, life wins, Getting ready for that Pride Month. Life wins. It's got scripture in Genesis about the rainbow, uh, all kinds of stuff. This is my pride flag right there. So go anyway. Go to the website, check out the different merch that's there, that's available. If you guys want to support, you guys can go to the merchandise page, or the merchandise page, or you guys can go directly to the donate page if you want to support that way. If you're watching on Facebook, you guys can. Since stars, we're watching on YouTube, you guys can do super chats, or if you're watching back later, you guys can do super thanks. And thank you guys for watching live. And those of you who are watching things back, very much do appreciate all you lovely folks that you take the time out to watch my stuff. So before we get to the Gaga stuff, I want to briefly talk about this hearing. Now, the issue with Biden's classified documents, and I've seen so many people say there's a big difference between Trump and Biden and these classified documents because Biden turned them in. Trump didn't want to turn them in. And yeah, once Trump was getting in trouble for not turning over these documents, then they're like, oh gosh, I do have these documents. Let me turn them over. Perhaps because as they're pursuing Trump on this and going hard for Trump at this, they don't want some time later to be like, oh, well, we prosecuted and arrested and tried, and Trump is in jail for these documents. And you had these in your basement or your garage or your den and all these places the whole entire time and didn't say a peep. So yeah, at that point, Biden was like, by the way, I do have them, but he was aware that he had them and he definitely should not have had them. So it's amazing to me how many people want to use them, but he turned them over. Yeah, eventually, but there's other folks that if they have classified documents in an area where they're not supposed to be, their clearance is revoked and they could and probably will be prosecuted. So Biden was one, not the president. So there's different classification powers that he did not have at the time when he had these things, and he was a citizen when he had some of these things, and they were not secure, and other people had access to that space, including his crackhead son. So it's not good, but we like to start off sometimes with a meme, and I'm sure you guys have seen maybe a meme like this before that kind of shares the moment, but it's Biden is senile. Biden isn't senile, so he should be charged with mishandling classified documents. And the guy, sweating because he has to make these decisions. And yeah, that was kind of the thinking, at least when the documents were the kind of the summary of why they decided to not go ahead and prosecute, because they just like they don't believe that a jury would go ahead and convict, given that information. So here's a little bit of the special counsel talking about it. I'm just going to play a couple snippets, but I mean, it's streaming different places, and yeah, willfully still can't talk today. Willfully retain them. That's not up for debate. It's just the truth.
My team and I conducted a thorough, independent investigation. We identified evidence that the president willfully retained classified materials after the end of his vice presidency when he was a private citizen. This evidence included an audio recorded conversation during which Mr. Biden told his ghostwriter that he had, quote, just found all the classified stuff downstairs, end quote. When Mr. Biden said this, he was a private citizen speaking to his ghostwriter in his private rental home in Virginia. We also identified other recorded conversations during which Mr. Biden read classified information aloud to his ghostwriter.
So, the ghostwriter, by the way, did once the special counsel was listed, did start deleting things. And when I guess why they decided to not prosecute them is when they talked to them, they had a kind of a reasonable sort of I don't know, explanation, I guess, which I don't know about that, but there does need to be I guess maybe they just didn't feel that they met the intent threshold for obstruction of justice there. So, um, but here's a funny clip from one of the squad members here trying to claim that this exonerated Joe Biden. And when he tries to correct, she tries to just kind of shut him down. Like, you should only ask questions that you know the answers to, or can lead them to certain things. But trying to grandstand here as if he was just going to take it, nod his head, and make such a statement was silly.
So this lengthy, expensive, and independent investigation resulted in a complete exoneration of President Joe Biden. For every document you discussed in your report, you found insufficient evidence that the president violated any laws about possession or retention of classified materials. The primary law that you analyzed for potential prosecution was part of the Espionage Act, 18 U.S.C. 793E, which criminalizes willful retention or disclosure of national defense information. Is that correct?
Congresswoman, that is one statute that we analyzed. I need to go back and make sure that I take note of the word that you used, exoneration. That is not a word that
I'm
appears
going
in
to
the
continue
report, and
with
that's
my
not part of my
questions.
task as a
I'm going to continue
prosecutor.
with my questions. I
Judgment
know
that I
that the
received,
term,
I ultimately reached
I know
related to
that the
whether
term,
sufficient evidence existed such that the likely
you
outcome
you
would be a
exonerated him.
conviction.
I know
I
that
did
the
not
term
exonerate him. That
willful
word does not appear in the
retention has a,
report, Congresswoman.
Mr. Hurts, my time. Thank you. So this lengthy, expensive.
um, so not exactly what she wanted there. She wanted to grandstand to him. Not really, I guess, probably ask a question there. Didn't expect him maybe to interrupt, but no, he obviously willfully retained the documents, and he knew he had them. He read them aloud to his ghostwriter, right? Um, and had them for a minute. So there's no question that he inappropriately had these documents. But he said it's his job. It was to evaluate whether the jury would, whether they could pursue it and get some kind of conviction. And he just didn't feel, uh, citing, like, because of some of his issues with his memory and so on, that a jury would probably get to that point where they, go ahead and convict. Now, as the meme suggested at the beginning, before we start on the subject, okay, either Biden is fine and, is competent enough to stand trial, or he's not. And I would argue that he is, and maybe that they should just let the chips fall where they may and let the jury decide what they're going to decide. But I guess deals and whatever are made all the time in the real world, not just like high stakes politics kind of stuff, where if they don't think that they can land that conviction, that they're not gonna bother kind of pursuing, or they'll cut the sentence, cut a kind of deal, probation or whatever. So I guess it's not that absurd, but I don't know if Biden is as, not with it as people make it seem. Obviously, he's not up to speed, he's slow, and he's, confuses a lot, misremembers things, etc. I don't know if it's particularly super crazy compare, when you consider his age, but the issue is that he is in charge of the nuclear codes, but he's always been a not particularly wise or moral individual, I would say. And and everything's just kind of catching up with him at this point. After Afghanistan, the veil was basically torn down for a lot of people, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, this isn't the nice grandpa that we were promised." And I heard Ben Shapiro say this earlier. He's like, if Joe Biden had his faults with his age and misremembering things and the lack of communication skills and so on, if you had all that, but you had some really good banger policies coming out, people would let it slide. Like, Biden is not that much older than Trump. They're both super old at this point, right? But people aren't. There are some people in retaliation to Joe Biden's old comments. They are finding clips of Trump maybe saying confusing names or whatever, and some, DeSantis people were trying to do stuff like that too, but you know they're not the same. They're not the same, but people are trying to make those comparisons for whatever moments they can find with Trump and try to be like, oh, well, he's old. But there's people on the right who are like, but he did a good job the last time. He still seems with it enough. And he's still promising good policy. Biden does not come off like he's going to usher in a great age of, I don't know, prosperity and safety and so on. No matter how many times they try to kind of sell it like things are great, there people don't feel that in their pocketbook. People really, inflation is still getting them hard. My sister was complaining about how much chicken, the packs of chicken that we used to get for like under $10 or close to like $8-9 or something. She said that those same packs were like $20 when she went to the store the other day. So she got like kind of some cheaper stuff that she could find. But it was the prices are crazy. Prices are crazy. Gas is going back up. It's the real estate market. So many things are hard for Americans. So we're just not feeling it, Joe. And then the border is a crisis. And you can't just kind of talk your way out of that one. So if there was some kind of competency there, and if he didn't have this gigantic stain of Afghanistan that has been burned into our minds, maybe people would be like, Joe, he's old, but he just needs some help, but he's doing a good job. Nobody feels like he's doing a good job. Nobody feels like he's doing a good job. Not Republicans, obviously, not the independents, not the moderates, and not the progressives that he's really trying to win over. I mean, you might get someone like Bernie Sanders who come out and compliment and be like, "Oh yes, we're moving our party further to the left." But that's not probably going to play well for them in the upcoming election at all. So I don't know if he's, again, like totally dementia, as some people say, but he's definitely got issues. He's definitely got issues, and he's up there. So we're not really surprised, are we? But here's a reminder, here's of the different locations that Joe Biden had his documents stored.
Mr. Hur, classified documents were found at the Penn Biden Center?
That's correct.
They were found in President Biden's garage?
In Wilmington, Delaware, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And in his basement den?
Also in the same home, yes.
And his main floor office?
Correct.
And his third floor den?
Correct.
At the University of Delaware?
Correct.
And at the Biden Institute?
Correct.
Mr. Hur,
So-
classified documents were found at the Penn Biden Center?
Yeah, there was a lot there. There was a lot there. And again, he shouldn't have had these documents. Willful retainment, that's not for debate. It just happened. The fact that he had to call and say, hey, I have them, obviously he willfully retained them, okay? There are transcripts, by the way. It's funny, people cutting out different stuff with the transcripts, but of the conversation that Joe had with that where he brought up his son, because you remember that Herbs said that he couldn't remember like exactly the dates of his son's passing away and stuff. And Joe Biden did a press conference after this was released, and he tried to, I don't know, pretend to everybody that he was fine, and it was a crap press conference where he got details wrong, and he tried to say, how dare they bring up my son, it's none of their business. And he said, I of course I remember that day, and I have this rosary that I got from, and then he couldn't complete the thought of where they had gotten the rosary. And it was you know, sad to watch. And the press secretary said that that was Joe Biden's idea. I'm not surprised that was Joe Biden's idea, but he just affirmed probably people's concerns from that report from that press conference. He certainly didn't make things better. But there's a transcript. Um so during this time when you were living at Chain Bridge Road, someone had said in a comment in another video, like, you need glasses. Yeah, I do. Like, I do have a pair. They're old though. I need to probably get another prescription. I don't know where they are. um, and they're kind of broken. So yes, that is a thing I need. Just FYI. So during this time when you were living at Chain Bridge Road, and there were documents relating to the Penn Biden Center or the Biden Institute or the Cancer Moon Shoot or your book, where did you keep papers that related to those things that you were actively working on? Well, I love how they transcribed all the eyes. I don't know. This is what 2017, 2018, that area, and you probably suspect they left some out. Yes, sir. Remember, in this time frame, my son is either been deployed or is dying, and so it was. And by the way, there are still a lot of people at this time when I got out of the Senate that were encouraging me to run in this period, except the president, talking about Obama. I'm not, and not a mean thing to say. He just thought that she had a better shot of winning the presidency than I did. And so I hadn't at this point, even though I'm at Penn, I hadn't walked away from the idea that I may run for office again. But if I had run again, I'd be running for president. And so what was happening though, what month did Bo die? Oh God, May 30th. Excuse me. Ooh. 2015. Was it 2015 he died? It was May of 2015. It was 2015, or I'm not sure the month, sir, but I think that was the year. That's right, Mr. President. It was. And what happened in the meantime is that, and Mr. Trump gets elected November 2017, 2016, 2016. All right, so that's the section there that people are talking about. And you'll see that he himself, because there was a report, people familiar with the conversation said that it was Biden himself who brought up his son Beau. It wasn't the special counsel. So he did bring up his son. And they got so angry when they mentioned it in the report. So, you know, there's another snippet. He says that the special counsel said that they did not disparage the president. By the way, the White House did want them to leave this stuff out. That was another pretty big thing that was discussed today. But let's watch this clip.
There has been a lot of attention paid to language in the report about the president's memory, so let me say a few words about that. My task was to determine whether the president retained or disclosed national defense information willfully. That means knowingly and with the intent to do something the law forbids. I could not make that determination without assessing the president's state of mind. For that reason, I had to consider the president's memory and overall mental state and how a jury likely would perceive his memory and mental state in a criminal trial. These are the types of issues that prosecutors analyze every day. And because these issues were important to my ultimate decision, I had to include a discussion of them in my report to the Attorney General. The evidence and the president himself put his memory squarely at issue. We interviewed the president and asked him about his recorded statement. Quote, "I just found all the classified stuff downstairs," end quote. He told us that he didn't remember saying that to his ghostwriter. He also said he didn't remember finding any classified material in his home after his vice presidency. And he didn't remember anything about how classified documents about Afghanistan made their way into his garage. My assessment in the report about the relevance of the president's memory was necessary and accurate and fair. Most importantly, what I wrote is what I believe the evidence shows. and what I expect jurors would perceive and believe. I did not sanitize my explanation, nor did I disparage the president unfairly. I explained to the Attorney General my decision and the reasons for it. That's what I was required to do.
So, I thought that was a pretty good explanation of why he felt it was necessary to put it in there, because I guarantee you, if they did not explain this thoroughly, people were going to say, what the heck, man? Like, we're aware that he had the documents and he shouldn't have had the documents. And people, I don't know, would have went all conspiratorial on it anyway. So one way or another, the explanation had to have been made. And even still, folks still don't feel that it wasn't right that he was prosecuted. Now, maybe he's correct that the jury wouldn't have, you know, they would have had pity on him and stuff. But if, you know, if that's the reason why the jury's gonna find him innocent or wouldn't, not innocent, but wouldn't convict him or whatever, maybe Trump needs to just, you know, go back to that I can't remember and let that be the thing that I guess saves him. However, some of the stuff with Trump, we'll see how his trials end up playing out, because like the Fani Willis situation is just crazy. So we'll see how other ones kind of fall apart. It looked like it was kind of the end for the man a bit, with so much stuff kind of coming around him, but he you know, is a presumptive nominee, obviously. And Joe Biden is so terrible at his job. If he was just a little bit better, he would probably be the favorite. He'd probably be the favorite. And, you know, at the best, you could say it's even, but I think it's more likely that Trump is ahead. And if he could just moderate a little bit, like he proposed a budget bill that is crazy, and that's bad. I mean, people complain and they talk about spending, etc., blah, blah, blah. And that's a conversation for a little while. It's an important conversation. I don't think enough people, I don't know, seem to care about it enough that it really weighs in. I think the things that people are going to be most upset about is the border situation. That's a top priority for most people, despite MSNBC mocking people who don't live on border states when people are being killed by folks who shouldn't be here. People are dying from fentanyl that's over here. People have, you know, all these folks coming into their neighborhoods and communities and stuff who shouldn't be here, who broke the law, and you don't know the background of other folks coming in. That's reason enough to be concerned, period. You know, or just even if it didn't touch you personally at all, if you just have a righteous indignation of knowing that people are constantly disrespecting the country as a whole, I don't think that's a bad reason to be upset. So Biden's incompetency on that is really, really major. Really major. So I don't know what's gonna happen in November, but it's fascinating. Certainly fascinating. Anyway, let's move on. Let's talk about Lady Gaga. Lady Gaga has upset some folks on International Women's Day, and she pushed back on people being upset. But Lady Gaga featured Dylan Mulvaney, and if you don't know who Dylan Mulvaney is, congratulations, that's great, absolutely fantastic. For the unfortunate rest of us, we're gonna have to let you in our little club and to tell you about him. A lot of people probably from my page know who he is, because that's probably like how people found me. I had some viral videos on YouTube, and that's how quite a lot of conservatives found me. A lot of TERFs found me. Some of the TERFs I think stayed. Some of them left, especially because I'm very, very pro-life and actually conservative, not really a feminist, but so I'm not a TERF, but Uh, Dylan Mulvaney is this huge TikTok sensation. He has this Days of Girlhood thing where a lot of his videos, especially early on, were just parodies of women. Like I think the first video was like, I cried all day. I spent too much money I didn't have on shopping, things like that. He's like, how did I do, ladies? And he ended up apologizing for that later. But the point is that men they don't know what it's like to be women. And you are basically being some kind of caricature that, excuse me, that you can't know. So you're just imitating what you have seen. And some people can do it better than others. Dylan is a weirdo, but he's always been a weirdo. Even just there's a clip of him from like The Price is Right, where he's still kind of doing his goofy mannerisms and stuff that he will do today and stuff. But Dylan has had some videos where he did a veiled threat. That was a viral video that I talked about, because he said it had like all this kind of sympathetic stuff in the beginning. He's like, by the way, just so you know, one day hopefully trans phobia won't be tolerated online, and I'd really hate for this to come back and bite you. Okay. And so some people are like, I don't see how that's a threat. I'm like, be for real. Like, we know that was like, shut up if you know what's good for you. That was basically the vibe of the video. We're not slow. So he's also had videos of complaining about people writing about him and using he him pronouns, and said that well, he thought that should be illegal. And so when you have thoughts like that, I mean, everyone can express their thoughts, ironically, as he tries to stop us from expressing our thoughts. But when you say things like that, and you have huge platforms like that, and you're an advocate for this community, it just has repercussions when you put bad ideas like that. So of course people are going to talk about those bad ideas and be concerned when you express those bad ideas that could have world breaking kind of repercussions. So anyway, let's watch this video with Lady Gaga here and Dylan. I don't know if she's singing a track of a song. There is music. I just don't want to get flagged by YouTube. But it's very short.
I promise you, if you put your mind to it and you work hard and you never give up and you do not listen to the rejection, you can achieve anything that life throws your way.
So, one, that's got to be really cool for him. Lady Gaga is a huge star, very talented writer. Lady Gaga, she's definitely weird, but very talented. And she's written some bops. She has, absolutely. So, that's just probably cool for. I imagine that Dylan probably listens to Lady Gaga, and it's probably a cool moment for him to be there, hanging out with Lady Gaga. So kudos for him. However, people were upset because they're like, why are you uplifting him? This person is a man pretending to be a woman on Women's International Day. So I think that's a great point. I don't, know exactly what was in her heart when she decided to do that. But they said that her makeup brand was celebrating him on, International Women's Day and stuff. So my question here that I've already raised at the top of the hour, but I'll say it again. What is the point of International Women's Day if a man can be uplifted and celebrated on that day, especially one who's pretending to be a woman? Like, what's the point of the day? What's the point of the day? Like, I saw that it's supposed to be, a day of like uplifting women and civil action, to talk about things like reproductive justice and equality and awareness for like domestic abuse and other things like that, issues that women are facing and so on. You know, okay, but those are issues that you want to bring awareness to women, but people uplift women and their accomplishments and all sorts of other things on International Women's Day. So if there's so little difference between men and women, if there's so little difference between men and women that someone can, by their sheer imagination, say that I am a woman, clearly the differences between us are unhelpful, are unnecessary, are silly. They're not worth celebrating or bringing any kind of a special awareness to, I would think. Why haven't we should just, not have this day if it's really that simple to be a woman. Cuz it's nothing worth celebrating if you can just pretend and accomplish that goal. Like if we were going to like celebrate like, oh, it's International Women's Day, we're going to celebrate let's say God forbid Kamala Harris became president or something. Or I already used this example, so let's go back in time. Do you guys remember Hillary Clinton DNC convention and when they showed all these men presidents and all of a sudden they had this glass shattering sound and then her face appeared, and that was after it became official that she got the nomination. And people in the crowd were crying and cheering, and you even heard like right-leaning commentators on like news programs talk about like, oh, that was still like, I don't like her or whatever, but it was still like a special moment because she's a woman. And then when she lost, people were upset like, oh my gosh, she should have been the first woman president, and the person who beat her was Donald Trump. And what am I going to tell my daughters about where women are in America and all this other stuff, right? So people thought that was a fantastic, wonderful moment. But what would that moment matter if when Trump gave his acceptance speech that night, when he came out on stage and was like, seemed to be overwhelmed or whatever. And I'll never forget that night. That night was crazy. But if he just came on stage and was like, by the way, I want to confess before the American people that I've been a woman the whole time. So even though and this is just something I've discovered in my mind right now. So I know they wanted Hillary Clinton to be the first female president, but America, I am your first female president. Or he could just go on stage next campaign or just say, by the way, I was a woman the whole entire time and we've already had a female president. So, congratulations, America. I did that for you. Another first, make America great again. I already made it great. A woman president gave you the best economy ever, did the most for the blacks. and he could just go on a rant, right? So if Trump could do that, if it was that simple to be a woman, and be like, I'm retroactively counting all the days because I was always a woman, therefore I've been a woman longer than Dylan Mulvaney. If he just decided to do that, and could do that, and we would just have to go, you know what, that's legit. We just have to accept that because he said so. I went through an article yesterday, and someone was quoting Judith Butler, and they said when a child says that I'm a girl and they're making that statement, they're already coming out against the sex, the barriers of sex and all kinds of different things. So if Trump just makes that announcement, he's like, yes, we're tearing down sex and all this stuff, and we just have to accept that he's a woman. What the heck does it matter about International Women's Day? What would it matter that if Hillary Clinton had won or any other woman wins in the future? What does sexism, all that stuff matter? What does it just, if it's so simple to just be a man or be a woman If you were a woman and you wanted to defeat the patriarchy, just say you're a man. Just say you're a man. Make the sexism go away. Make it's gone. All of a sudden you're making $1 instead of 87 cents. Just say you're a man. Solve it. Solve the problem. Solve it right now. Solve it. Or are there more pressing matters and things that define us and separate us? That's why some people were so mad at J.K. Rowling, because she just wanted to speak the truth, but about men and women, but she was sticking up for women who were saying that men and women are different, and she's just so unbothered by her haters. She will just like screenshot things that people say. She'll kind of leave out their name so there's not like mass harassment. Kudos to her, because if I'm addressing someone, I'm not usually blot out their name. It's like, you said something stupid to me, let's go. But she'll like block out their name and just show the comment and then reply. And she's just so unbothered by her haters, and she knows what people are complaining about is utterly stupid. But she wrote an article, and I read it one time on the show, explaining her life and her thought process. And she's like, my life has been defined as a woman. I can't just pretend that there aren't differences between us. So again, if Dylan could just say, hey, I'm a woman, I'm a girl, not even a woman, he's like girlhood on this journey, and amass all these fans and people who's going to stick up for him and get to meet Lady Gaga because he says this stuff. I just don't understand why there's anything to celebrate about being a woman if it's so fruitless, or not fruitless, I'm sorry, that's not the right word. If it's so frivolous, that's the word I'm looking for. If it's so frivolous, it's definitely not important to have a woman's month or a woman's, international day, etc. And if you could really just solve the problem by crossing over the threshold, just be like, I'm a man, and it'll be that. And I frankly, I don't understand if women have it so hard, why you have these dudes who want to be a woman. Like, why would you choose that? Why would you choose to make 87 cents instead of $1? Why? I mean, besides not being housed with male inmates when you go into prison. But anyway, let's read what Gaga said about some of this backlash here. And by the way, I already said this, I'm not surprised at all in the least bit. If you're surprised about Lady Gaga having featuring Dylan or anybody, do you know anything about Gaga? I mean, that's not just because you expect them to do things doesn't mean that you shouldn't bother criticizing or speaking up or whatever. That's not what I'm saying by pointing that out. I'm just saying I'm so not surprised by Lady Gaga doing that thing with Dylan. It's appalling to me that a post about National Women's Day by Dylan Mulvaney and me would be met with such vitriol and hatred. When I see a newspaper reporting on hatred but calling it backlash, I feel it is important to clarify that hatred is hatred, and this kind of hatred is violence. Now, I think violence is pretty intentional and usually physical, right? It's not usually like saying that, hey, that's a man, so why are you uplifting this man on International Women's Day? Now, there's probably like some hateful, like legit hateful comments in there, but the frustration, the spirit of the frustration with it all is that he's a dude, right? Like, you could pick any dude. Let's say she got, did a video with Andrew Tate and was like, Happy International Women's Day. Or did something with Donald Trump, was like, Happy International Women's Day. And maybe that's what people should do. Men should just start posting pictures of themselves and say Happy International Women's Day. Not trans women, just regular dudes, and just Happy International Women's Day with just their faces, doing make black and white ads or whatever, monochrome, and just let it go from there to parody this stuff, because It's just a dude. What does it matter if you could just have a dude and celebrate this day? They said, I feel it is important. I already read that. Backlash would imply that people who love or respect Dylan and me didn't like something we did. This is not backlash, it's hatred. So you can only face backlash from people who like you. And by the way, I'm sure there's a lot of people who like Gaga's music because again, she's a bit weird. A bit is being kind, but she is talented. She's a great vocalist, and she has made some uh really catchy tunes. And there's people who probably like, I don't really like her as a person. I think she's weird or whatever. But man, that song came on the radio and I can't get out of my head. And I listen to Gaga on the down low or something. There's probably plenty of people like that who are probably conservative and try not to like let any of that kind of seep into their politics. And they just roll their eyes at celebrities and go on with their lives and listen to this stuff. Who are probably like, why you do that? It's just because they maybe they're not a fan of both of them, but maybe they're a fan of one of Gaga and not Dylan. So I think her definition of backlash is not appropriate, but is not surprising given the immense work that is obvious we still have to do as a society to make room for transgender lives to be cherished, upheld by all of us. I feel very protective in this moment, not only of Dylan, but of the trans community who continues to lead the way with her endless grace and inspiration in the face of constant degradation, intolerance, and physical, verbal, and mental violence. I certainly do not speak for this community, but I have something to say. I hope all women will come together to honor us all for International Women's Day, and may we do that always until the day that all women are celebrated equally. That all people are celebrated equally, a day where people of all gender identities are celebrated on whichever holiday speaks to them, because people of all gender identities and races deserve peace and dignity. Yeah, so it just kind of sounds like Gaga just solidified my idea here that men should just be like, this is our holiday now. Like that African guy, like, it's my holiday now. It's my day. I'm the captain of the ship. May we all come together and be loving, accepting, warm, welcoming. May we all stand and honor the complexity and challenge of trans life that we do not know, but can seek to understand and have compassion for. I love people too much to allow hatred to be referred to as backlash. People deserve better. Sorry, ma'am, you don't seem to know. You don't get to just kind of define that on your terms, but he's a dude. She's a dude. He's a dude. Cause we're all dudes. Hey, he's a dude. Ga. Again, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. And I'll just say it one more time and move on from this topic. Because now I'm just, beating a dead horse. But this day is pointless if anyone could just say that they're a woman. Because and I have compassion. I would absolutely not want to suffer in that way with my identity like that. I do think at times most people do have some kind of moment where they question their life or question certain things about themselves or whatever. Maybe not to this kind of degree where it's such an intense self struggle. But I mentioned yesterday, because the article we read from, it made it sound like a bad thing that there are people who wish that there were no trans people. And I'm like, of course we should wish that there's no trans people, because people are having this internal struggle. And I wish that people didn't have that. Why wouldn't you want people to be at peace with themselves the way that they are? Unless you get something out of people being at struggle with themselves and living a lie and trying to enforce that lie on other people, which we could go back to the whole demoralization of society, KGB, etc., etc. But I don't want to go totally down that rabbit hole again today. But um, we're not just a thought, and we're not just a thought experiment that you can dream your way into. Sorry, that's not how it works. That's not how it works. Anyway, moving on. I want to talk about this video from Nancy Mace that took place, I believe, over the weekend. I didn't have time to get to it yesterday. So she was questioned, why is she supporting Donald Trump? And it got to quite a bit of exchange. And there are people like, yes, queen, with Nancy Mace here. And yeah, I don't know if it was all like, maybe we can decide. We'll watch it together and decide. I mean, we'll probably have different opinions. I mean, I think she held a bit of her own, but with this topic. But let's go.
And you've endorsed Donald Trump for president. Judges and 2 separate juries have found him liable for rape and for defaming the victim of that rape. How do you square your endorsement of Donald Trump with the testimony we just saw?
Well, I will tell you, I was raped at the age of 16. And any rape victim will tell you, I've lived for 30 years with an incredible amount of shame over being raped. I didn't come forward because of that judgment and shame that I felt. And it's a shame that you will never feel, George. And I'm not going to sit here on your show and be asked a question meant to shame me about another potential rape victim. I'm not gonna do that.
It's actually not about shaming you. It's a question about Donald Trump.
No, you are shaming me.
You've endorsed Donald Trump for president.
Right.
Donald Trump has been found liable for rape by a jury. Donald Trump has been found liable for defaming the victim of that rape by a jury. It's been affirmed by a judge.
It was not a criminal court case, number one. Number two, I live with shame. And you're asking me a question about my political choices, trying to shame me as a rape victim, and I find it disgusting. And quite frankly, E. Jean Carroll's comments when she did get the judgment, joking about what she was going to buy, it makes it harder for women to come forward when they make a mockery out of rape, when they joke about it.
Doesn't it make it harder for women to come forward when they are defamed by
It makes it harder when other women
candidates?
joke about it, and she's joked about it. I find it offensive. And I also find it offensive that you're trying to shame me with this question.
I'm not trying to shame you
at
at all. In fact,
I have dealt with this for 30 years. You know how hard it was to tell my story 5 years ago when they were doing a fetal heartbeat bill and there were no exceptions for rape, incest, or rape or incest in there? I had to tell my story because no other woman was coming forward. No rape victims were represented. And you're trying to shame me this morning.
I'm just asking.
And I find it offensive, and this is why women won't come forward.
Women won't come forward because they're defamed by those who perpetrate rape. Donald Trump
They are judged and they're shamed, and you're trying to shame me this morning. I think it's disgusting.
I'm not shaming you at all.
I told my story. It took me 25 years to tell my story. I was judged for it. I still get judged for it today.
I'm asking you a very simple question.
So, the very simple question, huh? Let's just go back to it really quick.
This morning, and you've endorsed Donald Trump for president. Judges and 2 separate juries have found him liable for rape and for defaming the victim of that rape. How do you square your endorsement of Donald Trump with the testimony we just saw?
So, I don't know if her history just didn't dawn on him, or if he wasn't expecting her to use that. Obviously, one, he was trying to shame her, not necessarily as someone who's been a victim of sexual assault, but as, I don't know, a human being, as a woman, as a person with a conscious, I don't know. But there was a goal there to have her explain her support. But the way the question is, he did these bad things, according to this testimony and these folks and what they say and what these people believe. How dare you basically support this man? Can you explain that? So obviously he was trying to shame her. And her turning around saying, I've been shamed my whole life as a person who's actually been a victim. And how dare you? How dare you? Now, if you're not familiar with this woman, which Trump did put up, was it like $90 million that he was supposed to pay. So I'm gonna be careful about how I cover this lady. She's going out trying to get them checks. But which after, she was on, I think, CNN talking about like, oh, we're gonna spend the money on this and do the money on this, and her lawyers or people are just like, she's joking, we're gonna use it for good activism things or whatever. And I think that's where Nancy Mace was talking about how she's joked about it. But there's this clip that was quite strange when she was on Anderson Cooper's program, talking about this experience. So she's a odd bird. I think I can say that with no risk of losing $90 million, which I don't have to pay. As in, I don't have $90 million to pay this woman. But Trump did put up the money for the judgment, but you have to put up the money in order to appeal. So I don't think he plans at the end of the day to just like hand it over to her. But here's what she said in the past.
Violent assault. It is not.
I think most people think of rape as being sexy.
Let's take a short break.
Think of the fantasies.
We're going to take a quick break. If you can stick around, we'll talk more on the other side.
You're fascinating to talk to.
So as soon as she's like, I think most people think rape is sexy, because she said that Donald Trump, it just hurt, and it wasn't I guess he didn't do it the right way. I don't know what to exactly make of the clip, but Anderson Cooper was like, well, we're gonna break him. He like didn't know what to say. Probably didn't know what kind of person that he was talking to, but I just wanted that information there. I'm not gonna say too much because I ain't got $90 million, but so those are the kind of things that Nancy Mace is probably thinking about and referring to this case with Trump and other stuff. But yeah, Stephanopoulos obviously was shaming her. Now, what's interesting about George there, which George can ask some like pointed questions even at Democrats and other folks at times, so he's not the worst shill in the world. But he did used to work for Bill Clinton. So he has been an advisor of the Democrat Party. He rose to prominence as a communications director for the 1992 presidential campaign for Bill Clinton, and then he ended up becoming the White House communications director. So if you want to talk about men who did some naughty things, men who were accused of sexual assault quite a bit, and people who's had to pay out some money, and who has defamed, victims. The whole bimbo eruption situation with the Clintons, man. Did you guys know, I've mentioned this before, but maybe you guys haven't been with me long enough to know this. Did you know that the phrase vast right-wing conspiracy theory was born out of the conspiracies of, I guess, Bill Clinton just diddling around with interns and doing inappropriate stuff with women? Did y'all know they tried to say that was a conspiracy theory? So it is so funny because in 2016, Anderson Cooper asked Hillary Clinton, do you still believe that there's a vast right-wing conspiracy? She's like, don't you? She's like, it's gotten better funded. I'm like, the audacity of these people to know that they basically made up that phrase. They made up that phrase to hide something that was true and called it a conspiracy. It went on and on and on about it. And Hillary Clinton and all these other people would do like damage control for Bill and come after people who had real issues with obviously what he had done. Dan Bongino, he's heard some stories and stuff, I'm sure, but lots of people have heard stories about crazy stuff that went on in the Clinton White House. But if anyone could be shamed, he could definitely be shamed for what he did in the working under Bill Clinton. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Now, if Nancy Mace though is going to, on a side note, just say people have been shaming me my whole life, and you're trying to shame me now. Um, I don't think trying to live a shameless life because you've lived with shame and people, women who are sexually assaulted, they do live with a lot of shame, and people will treat sometimes them like it was their fault or there was something that they could have done differently, and they'll have all these strange feelings like especially like we get into the weirdest conversations when people bring up sexual women who are impregnated by sexual assault, and then they feel people will have like anger, sometimes even outrage when people talk about like why that baby was still a baby and I kept mine or whatever. And I've seen some people say some disgusting things about not only those babies but the women, and it's very strange. I just want our society to treat these women better in general, but um Nancy Mace could use a little bit of shame in her life. Nancy Mace, she had that scarlet A on her chest not too long ago. And I was talking about her. I'm like, she wanted a lot of attention after she basically knifed McCarthy in the back. And I'm like, ma'am, you did not have a great reason for coming out against him. Uh, then there was the prayer breakfast situation. She spoke at a prayer breakfast for Tim Scott when he was running for president, and she opened up with a story of her being in the bed with her fiance. And did they break up? I thought they maybe broke up, but maybe I'm wrong, but I'll have to double check that. Um, but she was at the prayer breakfast. She talked about how she was in bed with her fiance. It was like, oh baby, we can't go again because I got to get to the prayer breakfast. So she knew. She said she's like kind of laughingly talking about it, so she knows there's something like wrong as she's saying this at the prayer breakfast. But I'm just like, one, politically, like that's not the place. That is what kind of political acumen do you have to do that? And two, that as a spiritual person or so-called Christian, well, you should know that's definitely not what you should be doing, and it's not appropriate for you to tell the story at the prayer breakfast. So a lot of people were talking about it, and she launched a big defense of herself, and she talked about the church and etc. And uh, I'm sure, I don't know, maybe her pastor had a conversation with her after that, but it was just all kinds of red flags. So I'm sorry. I think that some shame is healthy and some shame is good. And I think that she could probably use some here and now again. And she even brought up the fact that she stood against pro-life people who want to protect the unborn who are conceived through sexual assault. Um, and she mentioned how she had to share her story and stand up against these people. What, people who want to save babies? And again, I think we need to have uh, treat this topic with more dignity and respect for the women and the children. But I can't forget that these children are alive and human, and just be like, oh yeah, it's wrong to kill babies, but not those babies. That's like, we can discriminate against them and off them, but we got to protect the other babies, not these babies. We're gonna give them the death penalty, but not the people who commit the crime. It's um I can't just do that. So even her using that little segment at the end on that particular topic to just kind of be like, I'll stand up against my own party, my own people, and they try to shame me. That I think the opinion that it's okay to kill babies electively is shameful. But I think she's done some other things again that could use a healthy dose of shame. But what he specifically did there, which people will do all the time, her past aside, they'll say, "Oh, Trump said this thing here." Like one time, it was the midterm election. It was a gubernatorial election when the year Whitmer won. She was going against Bill Schuette, and he had just announced his lieutenant governor candidate. She was a woman, and there was a reporter who's like, who mentioned that Donald Trump called Omarosa a dog. And like, how do you feel about that? And so she had I can't remember what her answer was, but she had a good answer, and I was like behind her. I was close enough to hear it. I just don't can't remember exactly what she said, but I remember like you go girl, like she had a good response. But I'm just like, Omarosa is literally a TV villain. And you know, to come at Omarosa, comparing her to a dog or whatever, I can't remember what the exact line was, but like this is such a terrible indictment on Trump's character that you're trying to shame someone who's running for lieutenant governor over that. Like they do that stuff all the time. Now, some allegations are obviously worse than others, but that's just something they'll continue to do. Period. But coming from someone who worked for Bill Clinton, it's just a little rich. It's just a little rich. But as she said, it was not a criminal court. He wasn't like convicted of anything. And he should probably stop talking about, Carol here. But he can't help it. So I wonder what will happen on his appeal. But yeah, absolutely, he did try to shame her. And I don't know how you can deny that. Anyway, thank you guys for joining me. That's the last bit of news for today. Please go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on my website, different articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com/donate, because it does cost a stream and run my website, all that stuff. So you guys can support. I very much do appreciate it. Please check out different merch that I have on my website, like different t-shirts. Like this Make Crack Whack Again Trump 2024 shirt. We got other stuff like this You Are Not That Special t-shirt. I showed the mug earlier, but I do have that on a mug. You can go ahead and trigger someone in your life. I do also have books that I've written. I have 17 altogether. 2 are nonfiction, the rest are fiction. I have historical fiction, fantasy, paranormal romance, children's chapter books. Also have for my nonfiction book, of course, God Is Blatantly Against Abortion. So you guys can find all that stuff if you just. I have some links if you're on Facebook or YouTube, and you'll be able to find basically all my social media stuff. But you'll be able to find my stuff. Easy way to find my books is just search my name on Amazon. Thank you guys so much. I saw some comments. And someone said great impression with the Trump thing. I don't I don't think I did a great impression, but I guess it was amusing enough. Thank you guys. God bless, and I'll see you tomorrow.